Things are going pretty good. How about you, man? What's been going on? I'm curious. What have you been doing?
Literally not been doing anything, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, after all the traveling of the last year, I've been mostly just working, paying off the all the debt that I accumulated through the travels, which were obviously worth it, but just kind of keeping a low profile and not honestly doing much at all, which has been fine too. So
That's good. Speaking of doing nothing, I'm just letting Isabel in. Did you happen to see the movie Christopher Robin
no,
about Winnie the Pooh?
no, I didn't.
Did you hear about it? Are you aware of it at all? Or?
Kind of, I guess. I don't remember seeing a preview or anything, but
So Ewan McGregor plays Christopher Robin, and it's got the very similar formula as Hook. Christopher Robin has grown up. He left Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and Tigger and all those guys, and grew up and became like too fixated on his work and lost touch with his family. And it's all about like Winnie the Pooh coming to London to find him. It is a wonderful movie, very, very heartwarming. But a huge theme within the movie is about doing nothing. And that happiness really comes from not trying to just do. And maybe the best solution to a lot of the problems that we face is that we shouldn't really do anything. Maybe things are fine the way they are. And it comes at it from a really interesting perspective too. So it's kind of like doing and the being, you know?
yeah, right. Well, didn't we have like a thing that we said back in the day, like don't just something, like sit there, or like the opposite of don't just stand there, do something. But it was like don't just do this, do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was very much in line with like it was an anti-Illuminati movie if you want to look at it that
way. Right. So it's okay to do nothing. Well, yeah, good. I haven't really, but unfortunately, I haven't really felt like. I mean, I'm sure I have mentally been healing a little bit, but it's not like I've been, doing things healthier necessarily. I haven't. I've been drinking a little bit less, but I haven't like been meditating and, like letting my body heal and do all that stuff. So it wasn't really. I mean, I was doing nothing, but it didn't necessarily feel like super beneficial. It was just beneficial to my bank account, basically. But I'm not like mad about it. I'm not like regretting anything, and I haven't really missed out on stuff. I haven't had to be like, oh, I can't do that or I can't do this. And still having experiences, but just kind of, I think balancing out the beginning of my year, with like, well, the end of last year going to Europe and then coming out and hanging out with you and then going to Santa Fe. So like the beginning of this last year was like a lot of movement, and then, the latter half is kind of slowing it down a little bit. And I actually went for a long walk with Machiavelli on like a very misty day here, and I walked over to the lake and I sat there, and I have a conversation with Lake Michigan every so often. I feel like I've probably told you about that because I had conversations with the Pacific Ocean quite a bit when we lived in Venice Beach. And I was sitting there, and it was like the one thing that came to me was just slow it down. That's what I kept hearing, like slow it down. Just like in every way, like everything that I do, just need to slow everything down. And I think that's kind of what this last couple of months has been, is just kind of trying to slow the roll of all the momentum of everything that I've been doing for, this last cycle. So that's been going pretty good. I wrote it on my door on a little sticky note, so I see it every time I leave the house, and just trying to think of little things like when I'm eating or when I'm drinking or when I'm doing stuff at work, or just like, it's like, just slow it down. And then like thinking too, like that's what meditation is, right? On some levels, trying to slow down the monkey mind, as it's been called. So I think it's a gradual process of like trying to slow the big machine down of all the things that I've been doing so consistently and so robotically for such a long time. So it has been good, but I'm still like, I just started, hitting the brakes, or I'm not even hitting the brakes, just took my foot off of the accelerator. So now I'm just kind of coasting and then gradually slowing down. So not much has been happening externally, but that's been what's been going on internally, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. I like the analogy too. It's like, it's not as much pumping the brakes, it's letting go of the acceleration. And coasting. Yeah,
Right.
that's definitely important, man. Like, you got, especially all the traveling, you gotta balance it out. I'm all the people that can go out and just travel constantly, like Uncle Bruce. He needs to slow down. I think he wants to slow down, but there is no slowing down for him. It's constantly accelerating. And yeah, I mean, some people could thrive in that kind of lifestyle, but yeah, I don't know if I could. You got to have those intermittent, like, pull over, go to the rest stop,
Exactly.
get back. That definitely very important. Yeah, dude. And then I don't think we talked actually since the whole David Wilcock resignation. Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I read into that, and then I watched part of the video that you made about it, but then I didn't see any like official thing from his, because he made like announcements about tours or conventions he was having, but I never saw anything about him actually acknowledging.
No, he hasn't. He has not acknowledged anything whatsoever. The discussions have been going on through Laura Eisenhower and this woman, Patty Greer, who is a crop circle expert, enthusiast, researcher, however you want to look at it. But there are a few different podcasts where they have the actual letter, which, according to Jimmy Church from Fade to Black Radio, and Laura Eisenhower, who explicitly was given instructions by David Wilcock's management team's PR team to release the letter, but then, like, it's confusing where then it's like, oh no, that was leaked. We didn't mean for that to get out. And it's like a lot of people just going through the actual article and trying to like break it down. Let's read it. And it is crazy, dude. It's like a really strange article. And based on, I don't know, did we actually talk? Well, I mean, we must have talked, but
I think we just texted about it. I don't know if we actually.
But like, even after when I was coming back from Sundance in Canada, like, and the whole thing, like experiencing all that.
Oh yeah, we talked about that, I think.
Yeah. But then coming back from Sundance, my dad was driving. We were actually in Utah. And I saw David's most recent blog, and every now and then he has a new blog and read it. And dude, this one, it went on so long, and first, like, red flag for me, which, may or may not be true or whatever, but it was funny because my dad, when I read this, he was like, what? It was how Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and Jeff Sessions are all actually heroes of the alliance that are secretly taking down, like, the pedophile ring and the sealed indictments and all that. So it was just like David Wilcock going on saying that Jeff Sessions and Rudy Giuliani are like our heroes. And I was like, and I read that, my dad was like, what? Are you serious? Which is coming from like a Trump-esque supporter guy. It was like,
right.
Him be questioning that was like interesting. But then it went on, and was like breaking down symbolism of the movie Ready Player One and how it's like this satanic movie and like all of this stuff. And he was like literally showing pictures of the main character's jacket, and like you saw that picture with the pentagrams on it and stuff like that. I just kind of at that point I started scrolling through and looking at things like that, and I was like, dude, I don't know. I might be making a little bit stretching it a little bit here.
That's exactly what I thought, especially at those parts where I was like, you're reaching big time for that. That wasn't like an obvious, because isn't he always about like they like being obvious and out in the open? Like they wouldn't like have you fill in the blanks there. Like, yeah, he was like, you have to like, they had to like, make their own lines on David's like blog to like show you what it was because it wasn't obvious yet. I was thinking the same thing. I was just like,
Yeah, it felt very tinfoil hat worthy. And the other thing, it's that was the beginning of another phase of like, what the fuck is going on with David Wilcock? And then that was the same week that this resignation letter leaked. Okay. Now, leaked is in quotes because when you read the thing, he's directing this towards a person at Gaia, like a legal person or an employer. But there's a lot of things written in there as if like, why would he be building these big points? Like you wouldn't, it almost seemed like at times he was writing it as a personal letter, but other times he was writing it as if he knew it was going to be released and he wanted to make it clear to people that like, you know, if when people do read it, they're like, they'll be able to follow along with them. Because if you read a personal letter about legal stuff, you shouldn't be able to follow along with like everything. It's very personal by definition. But there's like times in there he wrote, and then it leaked. I think he released it intentionally as to be like, when the truth comes out that Gaia is a satanic front for the Cabal, like they won't come after me because my safety's threatened, you know, they're going to come shoot up the Gaia building and they're going to come after me. You know, that's like the gist of it. And, but yeah, dude, it was like, it opened up a whole new passage for me to like look into Gnosticism, the Gnostic understanding and the creation stories and everything. And like in regard to the pentagram, like David Wilcock constantly refers to that as a satanic symbol. And the fact is it's not a satanic symbol at all whatsoever. It's just a sacred geometry form that our human body actually demonstrates. You know, like the Vitruvian Man, it's a 5-pointed star with 2 hands, 2 feet, and a head. And to go as far as to say that that is a satanic image is like very, what the fuck, dude? Are you saying humans are satanic just by default?
Right.
So it's like a lot of it's symbolism, and he goes on about this Luciferian principle and the Cabal, and he really conflates a lot of this. And a lot of it's true. It's like there's this Luciferian stuff, but then there's like this evil Cabal, and they're all the same. The Freemasons, they're all evil. So I did this research wormhole the other night on the Illuminati. I'm like, I don't really know exactly the founding of the Illuminati. I know roughly. So I started looking up the Bavarian Illuminati, founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, his name. And then they start talking about how they infiltrate the Freemasons, but they every now and then they mention the Jesuits. You know about the Jesuits? They mentioned the Jesuits. I'm like, oh, well, I don't really know too much about the Jesuits. Let me look up the Jesuits. And that's where it got fucking crazy. That's where it got crazy.
Well, every time I went down those holes, it always led to the Jesuits, like saying that they were the ultimate power control guys, and that the one guy who like controlled the whole world was this fucking like Jesuit king. I don't know who like
the Black Pope he's called.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Anytime I hear Jesuits, that's like the only thing that I've ever read about them. But I mean, my Jesuits, like normally, are just, I feel like it's the same thing as the Freemasons or whatever. It's just like I don't know, because there's like Jesuit schools in Milwaukee, and it's like they're doing really good things, and like they're good for people, and so that's all I know about Jesuits is like, oh, the real people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's kind of what it is. And like that's a good point that you bring up. It's that they're Jesuit schools, and they're just like any religious people. Just because you've got crazy religious extremists, like Roman Catholic religious extremists, or that like a whole lot of Roman Catholic priests and bishops are pedophiles and like child abusers, doesn't mean that all Roman Catholics around the world are evil people. It's like, I think it's the opposite. It's like the vast majority of any religious group is fundamentally good. But then when you get upper and higher in the infrastructure and the institution, that's when shit starts to get weird. And so apparently with the Jesuit order, the Jesuits were, the founder of the Illuminati was a Jesuit professor, and the top Illuminati guys were all Jesuits. And they created the Illuminati specifically because they knew the United States was forming. And the Jesuit order of intent really just is like a military organization that wants to enforce the rule of the Pope around the world. Like that the Pope will rule the world. There's only one guy that's in communication with God. Anybody who's not a Roman Catholic is a heretic. Let's kill them. They were the ones behind the Inquisition and like the witch trials and all that stuff, like fueling those fires, literally. But the Jesuits created the Illuminati as a front in order to infiltrate the Freemasons, which were good. Freemasons, like, were all good. It was just an ancient order of knowledge and geometry and math that came out of the Dark Ages when, like, the church ruled everything. And if you even talked about mathematics, you would be like, Satanist. And they, like, kill you just for making math equations and shit. You know, like, they had to do it in secret. And the Freemasons, they have knowledge and stories that go back thousands of years to Atlantis and everything, right? But the Illuminati was the front that the Jesuits made in order to infiltrate the Freemasons and take over and control. So now to, like, a common person going on YouTube learning about the conspiracies and everything, they'll see, oh, Freemasons, they're the ones that want to control and take over the world. But that's not true at all. It was the Jesuits as the Illuminati infiltrating the Freemasons to take over all the lodges. And it was like, dude, it was a 3-hour-long documentary. And I was like, the thing that fucking blew my mind the most was the fact that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both died the same day, the same time, in 2 different cities, of the same exact fever, on the 4th of July, 50 years after and it's in John Adams. It's in the show. It's like the John Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
They're like, they have correspondence at the end of because they, like, had a falling out, and then they, like, wrote letters back and forth, right?
Yep. And it was like this really somber scene, and the way it kind of came off in John Adams was just like, oh, and they died the same day. Their chapter, their last letter was written. Game over. Like, the story's over. But then when they watch it in this Jesuit documentary thing, it was, like, very clear that in the letters, and I went and did the research, found the actual letters on the historical, like, archives.gov or whatever, between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. And they're both going back and forth about how the Jesuit order, which had been disbanded in 1814, like, all countries around the world were, like, expelling the Jesuits because they were just, like, military, like, crazy, fanatical people. The Pope himself at the time was like, we're not going to be affiliated with them anymore in 1814. And then in 1825, a new Pope came in. Arguably, the other Pope was killed, and this Jesuit, like, supporter Pope came in, reinstated the Jesuit order. And Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, they were, like, talking about this in their letters. They're like, did you hear about the Jesuit order getting reinstated, dude? And he's like, yeah, like, you know, totally, you know, dude, like, you know, so, like, but they were, like, going back and forth being like, yeah, I don't know about this. This is really bad. It's because a lot of the people in America were trying to escape religious persecution. By who? The Roman Catholic Church, which anyway wasn't even Christianity. That was just the Roman government that took over and co-opted the Christian religion to keep the Roman government going. So it was like that was a big part of Americans trying to, like, escape religious persecution because the Inquisition and all that shit. They just wanted to do their own thing. Mm-hmm. The Jesuits were, like, reinstated in 1825. They're talking about how they need to do something about it. In 1826, they both died on the 4th of July of a fever. It was like, when I read this, I was like, holy fuck, I never thought about that. Like, they were assassinated by the fucking Jesuits.
That's pretty, how old were they?
I'm not sure exactly how old, but okay. They were definitely getting up there. They might have been in their, like, 70s.
Okay. So that's why it wasn't really, I've never really heard of any, like, foul play in there, because it's just like, oh, old man. Yeah, right. And it happens.
And then it was very interesting. And it was, like, a cool thing to see because, you know, it kind of all started from looking at David Wilcock stuff and seeing him, like, looking at the symbols, saying that there's this Luciferian, you know, devil worshiping satanic cult that really runs the world. And everything about it is evil. Like, everything that comes from the Freemasons is evil. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, look at the pentagram. Pentagram's not evil. Maybe the way it's used, like a symbol, you can use it multiple ways. So I just went on this path. I'm like, I need to understand, like, where are the real bad guys? Where are the good guys? Because it's totally, like, interwoven and shit in there.
It is, and I don't think there is a good guy, bad guy, like, distinction. Like, it's literally impossible. We used to, do the research on these guys, and we had our outlets, for Alex Jones was in the beginning, and evolution to all these guys in between, Graham Hancock, obviously your uncle, and Greg Braden, and then David Wilcock, and like, just like kind of, and then Benjamin Fulford in there too. It's just like, you hear so many different stories from everybody, and then you also hear that there are good guys that have been doing bad things for a long time just to like stay in the good graces of the bad guys and to not be known. So there's like white hats doing terrible shit just so that they could be in the room when the thing happens, so that they can help somebody like thwart the big problem. So it's just like, and then it's like, who do you believe? And then having, ever since David Wilcock's been like, yeah, Trump is for, he's like secretly against the Illuminati, and nobody wanted him in there, and he's like doing all this good work, and like he might even be like, there's this 4chan leaker who's leaking stuff, and that might even be Donald Trump himself. And then it's just like looking at who he is as a person, and it's like he does not have the capacity to be that person in public the way that he is, and then have this other, unless he's a fucking madman genius, which I don't think is the case. There's no way that you could see him not talking about this stuff or not alluding to it on tweeting or being in the press. Like, there's no way he wouldn't slip up and say like, oh, well, if you only knew I was doing, like they wouldn't want you to want me to tell you this shit. Oh, and then he'd like say some dumb shit. He would. And then Rudy Giuliani, you always get bad vibes from him. Always, always, always. And he was like a horrible person around 9/11 and like everything leading up to it. Like, I just can't get on board with that. So, and then I've been feeling the same way. I feel like we've been going through the same. We've always been linked in how we felt about David Wilcock. We've gone on the roller coaster together, even if we haven't been living together. And it just seems like, he got married recently. Maybe that was part of the mental change but it's just like, I don't know. And he's so full of himself. It's like figuring out who the good guys and the bad guys are at this point, and thinking that they all keep fucking, jerking us off until it's like, it's coming, it's gonna come. It's really happening, Actually, we did the math again. 2012 is actually 2017. Yeah, 2017. That's actually when all the shit's gonna go down. And it's like, oh no, wait. 2019. Yeah, no. It's like, it's just like keeps hitting roadblocks, and it's like I can believe all that, but now I'm at the point where it's just so oversaturated and so like beaten down, and like we've been excited about this shit for like 10 years now, and nothing has really happened. I mean, there's been fucked up shit that's been continually happening and all this stuff, but really, I know we've been desensitized, and 10 years ago we never would have thought Donald Trump would be president, and all this stuff that's been happening, and all the treasonous stuff he's been doing, and they tampered with the election. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know. I don't really trust anyone anymore, to be honest. It's just like, I'll gain all, isn't that kind of what, not necessarily that, but like Gnosticism is like just gaining the information, right? Just like gaining all the information, the unbiased information, and assessing for yourself. I know there's a bunch of shit that we can't know about, like the secret space program and all this shit that's just not out there, but it's like, I don't know. I just don't trust anyone anymore, 100%. I'll take it. I'll take their perspective, but I'm not going to be like, he said it, so it's right. Like, I can't do that anymore.
No, absolutely. That's so true. You gotta find, if anything, you gotta go within to find answers. The answers lie within. Pretty sure Jesus said that, right? But it's confusing because according to the law of one, there's the path of the self and the path of the others, and the path of the self is the evil path. So it's all about the others. So it's like, I think there's a lesson there, but then just like any work of text or anything gets misinterpreted, and it's like, oh, well, one side is the right one, one side is the wrong one. But I think it's more of that interweaving thing. So if you want to understand how to take care of people, how to better serve others, you need to learn how to take care of yourself. You need to understand that you have the creator within you. There's this divine spark within you. That's a huge part of Gnosticism, is that the creator or the creation itself manifests and emanates in different layers and kind of unfolds and separates from itself almost like a hall of mirrors in order to develop free will, or to develop this sense of like forgetting, so that you can see yourself in multiple different ways. If you're all one, then there's really no challenges in life. There's really no perception beyond anything, because it's all just one. So we had to create these, like, this hall of mirrors so that we could like look down a hall of mirrors, and it looks like there's a whole bunch of people here that all kind of have their own little free will, their own rose-colored glass or whatever, that are all kind of coming from one emanation. The one emanation is the true creation. Does this make sense? So, and the funny thing is Luciferianism, the word Lucifer itself means the light bearer, the bringer of the light, or the morning star, like even in like the Venus, like the one that has this pentagram shape that actually moves around the solar system when you track it. And like Luciferianism is recognizing that we've been lied to about who God really is, because God and creation, it's like God is within you, and it's all about deprogramming all of the mirrors that are around you to get back to where the original source is. And everybody has their own pathway of understanding how to get back to the source. So it's funny because Lucifer in the Garden of Eden, it was like the one who entered the garden and said, look, you're living in a fucking concentration camp, being slaughtered all over the place. Here's knowledge of good and evil. Here's the tools so you can understand what right and wrong is, so that maybe next time you won't just do what people tell you or trust what people are telling you. You'll think for yourself, you know, and that was what caused the huge war and division. So it's like, I mean, by definition, I'm like a Luciferian Gnostic, and it's like a good thing. But the thing is, it's like, even within, that's why when I went down the Jesuit path, you see that like that worldview has been infiltrated by a group of people that literally worship a demonic being who is not the true God of this world, like the true creator. And in Gnosticism, there's a thing called the demiurge. So like in this process of emanating and creating this hall of mirrors, it got to a point where it couldn't go any further. And in this analogy, a mirror got shattered. And in the shattering of this mirror, something else is created out of harmony with the original emanation. This is called the demiurge, who is basically the lord or the god of the physical world, who wants to keep everybody in ignorance, wants to keep everybody living in the hall of mirrors and not remember how they got here in the first place. Keep you confused, wandering around in a hall of mirrors. That's the demiurge. And the whole principle is about just recognizing that, like, the God of, and this is where Luciferianism comes in, that the God of Abraham, the God of the Old Testament, and even the Quran and like Roman Catholic adaptation of the Old Testament, that God is the demiurge, the one in the Bible who was like telling Abraham, look, Abraham, if you love me, you'll kill your son. And Abraham's like, I don't want to kill my son. And he's like, oh, well then, you know, you're obviously not worthy of my love. And like, it's like, fine, I'll go kill my son. And then right as he's about to kill his son, God shows back up. He's like, whoa, what the fuck were you doing? How could you were actually going to kill your son? Man, you're fucked up. So God plays these games with, like, in the Old Testament especially, it's like that God is not the same characteristics of like the one that Jesus was talking about, which was more of like a universal love and talking about forgiveness and like all of the things that people think when they pray to God in the Old Testament, that's what they're talking about. But go up the pyramid to the people that know about all this shit, and they're laughing because they're like, ha ha ha, they're worshiping the devil, and they actually worship the devil. So it's like, it's funny because it's like, by definition, Luciferian Gnosticism is a good thing.
Well, I mean, that makes sense to me. You know, like, the down is the new up. I remember we were joking about that when Radiohead song came out. It's just like everything everything was flipped on its head. And even like I haven't been consciously doing it, but like at work, like recently, the last couple of months, I've been joking, just like going by, something happens, I'm like, oh, praise Lucifer, just like as a joke. But I've been saying it like a lot, like not really even thinking about it, but joking. But I'm just like, Lucifer's not actually that bad. Like if people like ask me about it, I'm like, well, he's not actually that bad. He was like, he was misunderstood, So that all makes a lot of sense to me, they just flipped everything on its head, which is like how I'm thinking about how we're perceiving everyone at this point, and like, just thinking about Trump and the way that the American government is portrayed at this point, and what, everything is flipped. Like, Alex Jones used to be like hating everybody in the government, and then you need to like look at this side of stuff, and then it's flip-flopped to Fox News hating the government, and then Alex Jones liking the government, like that, like completely flip-flopped. And then same thing with David Wilcock, not as to a drastic degree, and now he's like saying that this person who's clearly a shitty person is like somebody that is doing God's work here, and all these other people that we've like seen as bad people, now all of a sudden they're like they've been doing the right thing. And it's just so like thinking about God and like and Lucifer and like these ideas that we've had ingrained in us, and like thinking that we're worshiping one thing when we're really worshiping the other thing with like a hat on, or like just with a different name. It's just kind of obviously like a metaphor for everything, right? Like everything these days is about making money instead of having food or having this. It's like the opposite. It's like having the material instead of having the spiritual stuff. But like when you're talking about how that fucked up God, like how God will do that wild shit, but that's the one that we're like, yeah, but that's God. He's just, you never know what he's gonna do. He's a crazy guy. You gotta be ready. But I remember like when we went and saw, your sister Kim, and she was talking about, because she had just read the Bible, and she was just talking about like, especially Job. I think she was talking about like how fucked up God fucked up Job so bad, and was just like, just testing you, bro, just testing you, gotta like, just keep prodding you and doing all these horrible things. And it's just kind of like, we just assume that we have to do terrible things or experience terrible things. I know that that's like, experience is everything, and you want to go through all the trials so you could pass them, and so you can have that experience and make your way back to the one. But it's just like, it doesn't have to be, because we're just trained that it has to be horrible, because that's just the way that the world is, and God works in mysterious ways, and things have always been bad, so therefore it's okay that we're doing bad stuff now.
Yeah, and that kind of what you just said there makes me think about I was trying to at one point think of how we could segue into the idea of what we were originally thinking this podcast would be about, which was like graduation and even ascension, stuff like that. And what you just said right there, it's like that's been our pathway to ascension, is that we have to go and live in this world of duality, and we have to have there's good white hats and black hats or whatever, and you have to do trial and error, learn to make the right way, and then eventually you will come back to the one, or you'll have a revelation or something like that. But it's like now more than ever, that operating system for humanity is dysfunctional, outdated. It just does not seem like the hardware of Earth itself is getting upgraded. I firmly believe that, just through all the stuff. I mean, the good stuff that David would always talk about with the interplanetary climate change and the changes in the light and the consciousness and the DNA. So the hardware is getting upgraded. The operating system, original pathway to enlightenment, which served its purpose. It was not bad. Like, yes, exactly. Like, who's the good guy and the bad guy in a chess match? It's irrelevant. They're symbolically, strategically trying to win on the other side. But it's like now that is not suiting. We need to find another way to achieve this. And I think it's ironically, it's about like not doing anything. It's like not playing that game. Like, it's like, okay, you all move. And it's like, well, you feel inclined to make a fucking move after that. And we're just subconsciously making moves, not knowing what the fuck we're doing or why we're doing it. I don't want to keep playing against this super master chess player who always beats me and makes me feel like shit. I'll bet you if you win this time, you know, you'll get this, and we get co-opted into playing this goddamn chess game. Yeah. But again, back to Christopher Robin and the philosophy of doing nothing. It's like we literally need to just stop playing that game, and it starts within. It's not even about going out and trying to, like, because the whole thing, even with the Alliance and the Cabal, like in theory, if you've got these white hats that have been inside the circles of the satanic cabal just because they need to be in there in this fight, how the fuck does that apply to the average person? Like, what's the average person going to do about this? And this is like where it gets kooky, because even on the watching these podcasts with Laura Eisenhower and Patty Greer talk about like Gaia being a satanic company, this woman Patty Greer, you know, not to bash her or anything, but she's saying that she's like, says something like, when I was at UFO con or Contact in the Desert, I was standing there and all of a sudden I started feeling really sick, and I collapsed, and I knew right then and there that I was being targeted by a directed energy weapon from the Gaia headquarters. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck are you? It's like, no. It's like, we're taking that, like, we're not, I don't think we're involved on that chess game, like on that level. And to start like saying that we are is like, dude, you're not even part of that game. Like, it definitely, like, the decisions that they make affects our lives because we're in the economy of that chess match. But I think it's like, you know, when David Wilcock says, like, they're trying to kill me. It's like, I don't know if they're trying to kill you. Maybe people are fucking trolling you, being like, fuck you, David. And then he, in his mind, thinks that they're targeting him. It's like, dude, we're not involved in that fucking game. So, like, we need to step back. It's like, watch it play out and get back to the real thing. And that's like the Native American tradition, going and doing all these ceremonies. It's all about the creator. It's not about God as much. And really the creator or creation is nature. It's like the founding fathers of the United States said, they couldn't have said it better, by nature and nature's God. It's like unification of these Renaissance Enlightenment principles with the indigenous way of life that everyone wanted to have leaving Europe. It's like, that was it. And it's that simple. It's just about like learning to know yourself, like in the Matrix, know thyself. And then you will know God. Then you will know the universe. Then the synchronicities will start to happen. And it's like the same game, but just a different way of looking at it. Not a competitive version where it's one side versus the other. It's like you are the chess game, and that's going on in your own consciousness. So if you learn to do that, and then I think that's a big part of the secret knowledge, is that you have the creation within you. You don't have, it's not out there. It's in here first.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's how I feel about it. But it's so, how easy is it to be distracted by something, especially in like the age of ADD, which is, I believe, is a real thing. It's really easy to not focus, but I feel like it's also self-perpetuating, you know, and like, oh, I have ADD, I can't even try to focus. Like, I won't even, it's just really bad and severe, and I just can't possibly focus. So I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And you're not even trying to focus because you've given up on it completely because you're a victim of whatever you're a victim of. And I do that all the time, I'm sure. But you're right. Like, it's people making, when people are like, I'm being directed, I'm being targeted, like they're coming after me. It reminded me of, I don't know where I saw this, but it was like looking at Star Wars in a different perspective. And it's like, really, we're only seeing a handful of people who are playing this game. And it's just a handful of people who are in the know about what's going on between the rebels and the Empire. And it's like, but for the rest of the people, they're just living, right? Like, you don't see 99% of the people in the Star Wars universe. They're just fucking out farming, or they're doing their weird future thing, or they're, you know, like where whatever Luke was doing when we met him at Tatooine, you know, just like all that kind of shit. It's like most people aren't in that game, like you said, like, and we're not in that game. Like, David Wilcock might be in the game, but like, I feel like he just takes care of himself. I'm just thinking about the higher ups. They're just like, we just kind of got to push him one way or the other because he's so full of his ego. He'll just take care of himself. Like, there's no reason to like come after him and kill him. Like, it's just not worth the energy. And especially that woman who you were just talking about, it's not, whatever, even if that technology is possible, it's not worth the fucking energy or anything, the whole operation, how much that would cost to target this one woman and zap her so she had like a bad day. Like, it's not, we're not on that level. We're on our own level. And like you said, but we're only, I think all of that is a distraction. It's fun and it's exciting. It's a great movie to like, a great play to be part of, you know, all the world's a stage, but we're not fucking main characters. We're main characters on like the side stage, like the third side stage, and we play at like 10:30 in the morning, you know, whereas like the main show is at 7:30 at night on the big stage. We're like side stage. We're not even mic'd up. We're just literally over there, and like 2 or 3 people come, and it's your parents and my parents. Those are the only people watching our show, basically. And then if you're not in it, if I'm not in the show, I'm watching your show, and if you're not in it, you're watching mine. It's like, that's it. You know, we're all in our own little group, like us, the house, that's part of our play, but we're not like, you know, it's not like we're not as good as them, but it's like a different level. Like you said, the chess game, they can play that. The chess masters can play. They're all so ingrained in it right now. And that's their whole lives right now. But we're just kind of, we bop in and come in and come out. And we're like, we have our ultimate plan to make it to that stage and have our play, but we're not up there right now. Most people aren't up there right now. And it's really easy to like make yourself feel important. Like Jimmy Church is like, oh, we just had a cutout in the studio. They're zapping our satellites here. You know, they sent HARP over and now we have a huge rainstorm out of nowhere. How did that happen? It's like, we're not that, I mean, you know, you're not important on that level, but you are important to yourself. Right. And that's what you got to kind of, that's the point of what you were saying, I think, is figure your shit out, right? And don't be like, oh, I'm a big wig and all this, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But it's like, chill out, do nothing. Now I really obviously have to see Christopher Robin because that's what I feel like I've been going through. But then also the perception of what doing nothing is. It's not being a lazy piece of shit and ordering pizza and watching Netflix or playing video games all day long, but it's like, you don't have to be out there protesting. You don't have to be making YouTube videos. You don't have to be doing all this stuff to be doing all this stuff. Like, if you don't play the game, you don't have to play the game, right? You don't have to play the game. You can, but you can do whatever you want, but like, figure your shit out, right? Be the best you can be. If you can't figure you out, right, that's what I always comes back to me. It's like, if I'm ever, somebody asks me for advice or something, or I feel the need to like correct somebody, I'm just like, you know, I haven't figured my shit out yet. So take what I say with a grain of salt. If you want to hear what I have to say, then just know that at best, I'm only 50% right, you know? So I'm still figuring my shit out, but I do want to be better at who I am so that I can be better for other people. But it takes a lot to get all that stuff out of the way, and, you know, the ego and all that stuff. But I think doing nothing is the start, right? Like, stopping all of the distraction, stopping all the stuff that you're constantly reacting to, for that somebody else reacted to, that somebody else set in motion. And like, they're, like you said, they're doing something, so I have to do something. It's like, you don't need to. Like, sometimes people scold me when I'm walking Machiavelli without a leash. Like, there are some people who have had an experience with a rogue dog, or they're just whatever. Like, there's been 2 or 3 times probably in the last 8 years that I've been walking him off a leash where people like have said some shit to me, and I just don't respond. I don't even look at them. Like, because what is going to come out of that? Like, I have no obligation to say anything to you. You're like, you know, put your dog on a leash, otherwise I'm calling the police, or something like that. Or some woman said some horrible thing, like she hopes my dog gets hit by a car. Literally, she yelled that at me in Machiavelli. And I just like almost yelled something back, but where would that have gone? She's obviously got some issues of her own. So now I'm just like, I don't need to respond. I don't need to play the game. And if I'm at work too, like I deal, you know, serving tables. If someone is very like rude to me for like literally no reason because of something I had nothing to do, I just don't react to it. There's nothing they can do. I don't have to play the game. I don't have to play the game. And that's like taken me a long time to realize that you don't have to play any game. You just do your thing, but you have to figure out what is like my true response. What would that be? Like, I just bought my first book in a long time. Here's the cover. Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power. I just bought it like a week ago.
Wow.
And he was like one of the first quotes, like before, maybe even in the preface to it. It was just about like, I forget. I'm gonna sound like an idiot, but it was like the guy who wrote like one Key to Enlightenment book or something like that. A very, very famous book, but it was about like using reason and not being.
The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. I think
that was one of the other ones, but it was another guy too. Immanuel Kant. Does that sound right? Something like that. But it was just like being like enlightenment is being able to go out and use reason and basically not be influenced by how other people do anything. It's just like going out, me doing me, regardless of all this other stuff that's happening around me, not reacting to somebody else, but just doing me. Like, you know, you do you. People say that, and it's like a trendy thing, but it's like, it actually means to me being yourself completely in every situation, regardless of what is happening outside of you. And that's what they said, like, enlightenment is like not being influenced, basically. But you have to figure out who you are in order to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to start within, and it's ironic, like, because we talk about on one level how it's all one. That's the true nature of things, and we're living in a simulation of like holograms of like similar images of the one, and like you're you, I'm me, and by definition that's just an illusion, and we need to break free of that. But why? What is the benefit of having these filters? And in the Kabbalah, or the Kabbalah, as it's technically pronounced, it's all about like look at it as a metaphor, like a cup, and the universe is constantly pouring into this cup, and by default, all we can do is receive. We're just constantly receiving and receiving. It's like a cause and react situation. Something happens, and it's like we're a button that gets pushed, causes a reaction. And the science of the tree of life and the Kabbalah is to learn how to create filters or barriers that are your perceptions, so that like you basically put a screen over the cup so that not everything comes in, only things that like you want to come into your cup. So then ultimately your cup isn't getting full all the time, which gives you that space to formulate your own perception of the world. Because the thing is, we need to, it's again, thematically, it's like the chess game, cause and effect. We need to break free of that. So it's it's good that we have this illusion. This is not an evil place. Well, this is here for a very important reason. And like the graduation thing, dude, like we're moving in this realm where, like, one of the quotes in Christopher Robin, Winnie the Pooh, is like, Christopher Robin's like, Winnie the Pooh is just like walking through a field, just like seemingly meandering, like bumping into very clumsily, just like, oh, I'm hungry. and Ewan McGregor is like, where are you going? Like, how do you even know where you're going? Where are you going? And he's just like, well, I know where I'm going because it's the place that I always walk away. What does he say? I'm fucking this up. He's like, I know where I'm going because by leaving the place that I was at. It was just like a very like kind of simple thing. It's like, I don't have to know where I'm going. I just have to know what I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And a thing with the Gnostics in compared to like a traditional Roman Catholic sin thing, like you have to do the right thing, and we're here sinners, and you need to get rid of your sins and stop sinning. And sinning is like mistakes, really, like to miss your target. And the Gnostics, they don't deal with sin, they deal with ignorance. So it's like, yes, there still is that thing that we need to avoid or try to change, but it's not like making mistakes, because we're going to fucking mistake all the time. No matter what, we're going to make these mistakes. We can't damn the mistakes. That's how we got into this situation. But what we can look at is ignorance. We can learn how to become less ignorant and more present in the world. And by how do we become less ignorant? Through knowledge. And how do we get knowledge? In the present moment, by being, by not doing anything, by literally just sitting, like meditating, by becoming one with nature. You can start to receive things that you would not have been able to receive if you had your mind preoccupied with all the shit that's been coming at you. So yeah, it's really interesting. And then the fact that you got this Thomas Jefferson book, like right before all this. Makes a lot of sense.
It was, I always go in waves of, reading and stuff like that, and I haven't been doing well at it, but I forgot there was something on Reddit about he wrote this love letter to this married woman, I think, and then that led me down the path of like this really good quote, and then I read part of the thing, and then someone was like, oh, this is really interesting, and then it was like, well, if you think this is interesting, you should check this out, and then 10 minutes later I'm on Amazon and I'm buying a book for $6 that's going to be here tomorrow. I was like, that's a good investment, I'll take that. So and then one of the first things I learned about it is I'm turning 33 in less than 2 months. 33 is obviously when Jesus did his thing, not associating me with Jesus, but it's always been like a demarcation for me. And then 33 was how old Thomas Jefferson was when he wrote the Declaration of Independence as well. So, I
didn't know that. Was he was 33 when he wrote that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, it's regardless of the messianic stigma to that number.
Well, right, because there's a huge connection to it, right?
Yeah, it's a master number. In numerology, it's like 11, 22, and 33 are all these, like, I don't know, even that's one of those most like extremely complex occult sciences of numerology because it's everywhere. That's like one that'll make you really crazy because you'll start seeing numbers everywhere. And, like, it all makes sense somehow, and it's like, what the fuck? But the master numbers, I think, just by definition, they require, they're like the Merlin level. They're the wizardry. They're the teacher numbers, which makes a lot of sense. Thomas Jefferson, Jesus, anybody that was 33 that had some sort of major mark on this world was certainly a teacher. Yeah, man. So that's been really inspiring. I'm not very far into it, but I'm loving it. I'm very obviously inspired by him. And then that was perfect that you brought him and John Adams up right away. So it's obviously in the air right now. But then also kind of too much because, overwhelming, I guess, because of how proficient he was at like everything and always gaining knowledge. Like if he was anything, he was a Gnostic because he was just literally learning about everything constantly. Like they said he studied for 15 hours a day, like every day, learning about every subject and everything. And they said there were many, many occasions of him sitting down with anyone. And sometimes people didn't know who he was because obviously his picture wasn't everywhere. So it was like, they knew who Thomas Jefferson was, but they didn't necessarily know what he looked like. So people would have these conversations with who they thought was just like a well-dressed regular dude, and he'd be asking them about their profession, and he would know just as much about their profession as they would, and they always felt comfortable, and he just knew. He just was a great charismatic guy, and especially in conversation, not necessarily a speech giver, obviously more of a writer, but he just knew everything about everything, or at least was like semi-knowledgeable about stuff, so that he could strike up a conversation with anyone and then ask them, pertinent questions about what they know about. And I don't know. So that bit it's inspiring, but a little bit overwhelming. Obviously he's more a different person than we are. And John Adams is as well, and born of different times and all that stuff. But it's definitely something to aspire to. It's very, very inspiring, but just kind of like, fuck, like, brings it back to needing to work hard. Like, yeah, there is a need to do nothing or do less, do more, do less, get up, stand down, sit, lay, do more, do less. Pop up, pop down.
Pop up. So like, it's good. That's kind of like a metaphor for everything, right? Like you need to pop up, you need to get balanced, you need to do less, you need to not move, but you still need to do a lot to surf, you still need to know a lot to do nothing, to be able to stand on a board in the middle of a huge wave. So it's like the balance of knowing that hard work is always required. Always, always, always. Like no one, even when you win the lottery, I feel like those people still worked hard somehow. And it's like the universe will only give me something if I've earned it in one way. It doesn't need to be a direct translation. I don't need to work 90 hours and therefore get a paycheck for it. But it's like the work needs to be put in either way. So it is good to do nothing do less or stop whatever you're doing and take stuff into account. And I really like that metaphor about the water and the filter. So it is good to like filter stuff out and think about it and have that glass, the room in the glass, well, maybe not this much, maybe a little bit more, but to think about stuff. But then it's the execution is always required. And I feel like that's where the struggle comes in, at least for me, is like a knowing, especially knowing feeling like I know what I need to do, taking the time to get correct within myself, but then working, harder than everybody else. That's the way to succeed, especially if we aspire to play the grandmaster chess game, because I don't really want to play just the lower. I don't want to play checkers, or I don't want to like play a little game with all the. Not saying people are less than or more than or whatever, but I don't want to keep playing on the level that I'm playing at my whole life. I would feel very failed if I did that. So in order to play the higher stakes game or whatever I'm aspiring to, I need the execution and the hard work needs to come in, but I'm still not there yet on that level. But hopefully this book will inspire me a lot, and already has, and I'm only a couple chapters in, so I'm looking for motivation from there. But he definitely was a legend for a reason. All those guys were. Like, it's remarkable what they did and how they thought amongst everybody else, especially with Mother England and the Catholicism and the Jesuits and all this stuff overlooking their head. And they had such an idea of like, no, we can't have it this, we can't have that. It needs to be this way in order for everyone to be free. They were definitely wishful in a lot of their, like how they wanted to establish a new country, but it's so crazy that they had that opportunity and that vision and they fucking executed it. That's the crazy bit about it, is that they fucking did it. Like, that's so crazy to me.
Yeah, and to give them the benefit of the doubt too, like that example of Thomas Jefferson sitting at a bar having a conversation with somebody, had no idea that he was Thomas Jefferson. That person probably knew who Thomas Jefferson was, but had no idea that was him. And just to think of that world back then, it was not anything like, obviously not anything like the world we're living in now, where like people were educated. I mean, the vast majority of people were uneducated, illiterate, like they couldn't even read.
Right.
Like, and to imagine once you read, like in Game of Thrones, when Sam is reading the text and she's like, oh my God, you know what that means? You're a wizard just by reading. It's like, it seems silly, but it's true, because imagine these books or this knowledge and this education system that had been around for thousands and thousands of years, and only a select few people really understood what it all was. And then could actually do that and be able to sit down with somebody. And it's like, that must have been a real breath of fresh air to sit down with somebody who could communicate with you and know what you're talking about. Like Uncle Bruce even said that this, like how evolution happened, is not like the ancient aliens thing necessarily, that something came in from the outside and altered us. It was just a matter of critical mass of communities coming together to be able to share and communicate ideas. And he uses the example of like two cavemen sitting down at a campfire, and one of them looks up at the moon and knows like, oh my God, like we should go up there. We should build a rocket and go to the moon. Let's take this thing. And he's like sitting on the tree. We should build a tree and take it to the moon. And then like the other caveman will be like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I don't even know what the hell that, I don't even know what that is up there. It's like, when I see the moon, I don't see what you're seeing as the moon. It took many, many years of people coming together to share that idea, brainstorm that idea. And then once a critical mass of people got together, then the thing emerged, and then the new consciousness emerged, and then they could actually do it. So that was like his theory why evolution jumped. So to think that in that bar scenario, it's like you have, back in those days, there was only a handful of people that like understood the nature of reality, and they fucking did it. And then in the process had separated themselves from that power structure. And it was a major liberation moment, but it was short-lived because there was active forces that knew that was going on and wanted to stop it. And literally, like, the Illuminati was founded the same year as the Declaration of Independence. So it's like, that's not a fucking coincidence. And it's like, but in a way, it's like, even though we're living in a different time now, and people are educated, people are literate. Most people are fucking educated, literate now. It's kind of the same. It's like we're in a different incarnation of that same world where, yeah, we're all reading the books. We're all programmed with the knowledge and the history of how things are. But there are select groups of people, or smaller groups of people, more refined groups of people that look at the history in a different way. They can like read that, like in the Old Testament, for example, like some people read it and take it literally, that there was one guy and one woman that started the whole human race. And then there are other people that look at that and be like, no, that's just like a metaphor for a whole lost chapter of human history. So it's like, even now, it's like, and once you know that knowledge, once you have that knowledge, just like we can say we're the teachers in that realm. And I think it's safe to say that because people like Thomas Jefferson and people like Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, all these deists, even the Native Americans, like the people that they were really trying to base their government off of, they understood that real knowledge is not what's written. It's not even the academic stuff. It's the knowledge that we don't know anything, that we're very limited. We're living in this like artificial simulation of something else. Like the best piece of knowledge is that we know very little.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you come into a conversation like, I know what's up and I'll tell you what's up, that's when you start becoming an authoritarian person, acting with such certainty that you know what's going on. That's how cults are formed. And it's like really important that people start to recognize that like Thomas Jefferson, I could see him sitting in there. He knew a lot of stuff, but was able to communicate with people on a level that didn't belittle them. That and also was open to learning about their perspective, because even though he may have known a lot of what they did and how their lives worked, he was also like learning from that as well. As much as he knew, he was still learning. You got to remember that. It's like once you know, then you don't know anymore. You got a constant effort of gaining knowledge. So
yeah. I mean, and that's what one of these women said. Like she didn't know who he was, but then she learned who Jefferson was after the conversation. But she said she knew that he was kind of not humoring her, but like a little bit flirting. Like they said, he was very flirty, but not necessarily like sexually flirty, but just like a flirty guy. He would flirt with everyone, like men and women. But like, so he knew that people knew that he kind of had that. Not that he knew more than them, but he was just very charismatic. So like, even though they knew that he was kind of pandering to them or pandering, they still felt like endearing towards him, and they felt like they felt special because of him. But he didn't make it seem like he was above them or he was better than, or he knew more. He clearly knew more, but he still was like an equal in the conversation. And I think that's because of his mental state and his like openness to that kind of stuff. And I feel like all those guys, they had to have operated that way mentally. They had to know that they knew a certain level of stuff above a lot of other people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been confident with making the decisions that they made and declaring their independence. Like you wouldn't be able to do that unless you were very confident, or you knew, that I think this is a better way of life than that way of life. Fuck the motherland, not the motherland, but fuck the crown. Like we're doing our own thing here and we're confident we know about it. But they learned from other people's experiences, right? Like they must have known. They studied all the histories of all the revolutions of everything else. They knew how those kind of things went, but they're always open to other stuff. And I could see almost all of them being able to have a conversation with a regular person in a bar. Maybe not George Washington, because he seems like a level above the rest. And even if he was trying to have a casual conversation, you'd be intimidated as fuck.
Standing there full like gear,
yeah.
Regalia. Yeah. He was a king without being a king, for sure.
He was. So, but maybe everybody else, it's just a quality that they had, I feel like. And then it's like kind of a youthful kid quality, almost to keep the innocence of not knowing. And it also always reminds me of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's like when they're trying to capture Socrates and they're like, the ultimate knowledge of something is to know that you know nothing, and then they look at each other and go, "Dude, that's us," right?
Yeah, that's fuck. I forgot about that. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
I think we wrote that on the wall, right? Or that was
Yeah.
definitely a
Dude, that's
theme of
us.
the house. But they're still so great. Like they're dumb dudes, or they're not. You know, they are kind of dumb, but they're goofy and they're silly, and they're like they know that they know nothing. You know that they're self aware, but like having that self awareness, but just like that openness of always being able to learn, and like because you're kind of an asshole when you think you know more than other people. And even like Uncle Bruce is great at that as well. Like obviously he's a super smart dude, but when you talk to him or when he's having a lecture, he doesn't make you feel stupid because you don't know what he knows. He's a great communicator, and he has that innocence obviously too. He's very kid like and happy and like wants to have a good time. He's a cool dude. But I feel like that's a huge quality to have if you're trying to progress in anything, right? Like with yourself or within your profession or within the story of time or whatever. I don't know how we got on this, but those guys are definitely inspiring.
Yeah, and dude, like that, as far as a theme goes, because it's okay that we have these tangents or tangents, or let's use the metaphor of branches coming off of the trunk of this tree, and to look down at like what the root is or what this tree is in this conversation is the concept of graduation or like ascension or accomplishing goals, like moving from one grade to the next type of thing spiritually. And in the Kabbalah, in the lineage of needs, have you heard of Pavlov's hierarchy of needs before?
I don't think so.
It's like this thing in psychology where it's like their needs are stacked on top of each other. So the first most primal need is the need for food, water, and shelter. And then once you have food, water, and shelter fulfilled, the next need that you have is for family and reproduction. So once you have like you're safe, then you can reproduce. And then what's the next one? The next one is the resources. To be able to, once you have family, you need to be able to have resources. So you got to get be able to control the resource so you don't have to keep going back. So, and I don't know them all, but they are built one on top of each other. And in the Kabbalah science, there's a similar structure of this where you go on this progression of needs and like looking at it like that cup being filled. Once the cup is filled, the next thing, okay, well, I need to make my cup bigger so that I can receive more. And you go on this level. And the first one I think is, food, water, sex, shelter, like all of that stuff in one. The next one is resources, to control the resources. The next one is power, to be able to control the resources. You don't have to worry about getting stuff ever again. The fourth need of expanding your cup to receive is knowledge. And this is where it gets a little interesting, because the thing is, knowledge is never ending. Knowledge is never ending. And that's where the term knowledge is power comes from, because if you have knowledge, it supersedes all of the other needs whatsoever. Like for an extreme example, if you have the knowledge of how to gather your energy from just meditating and breathing without having to eat food, then that knowledge overrides the need for food, water, or anything. So the thing is knowledge is like this ever expanding cup, and it's like almost reminds me of the Indiana Jones part 4, where she like the alien shows up and just like beams knowledge into her face, and she's like, "Oh yes, knowledge!" And then, "Oh no, too much knowledge, and her head explodes. So like that's a very extreme negative way of looking at it, but it's a very basic thing is that knowledge that need for knowledge can never be fully satiated, because once you think, again, it's like once you think you got it, the thing gets bigger again. Oh, I got to know more. I got to know more. I got to know more. Gain all knowledge. That's the fourth need. So there's a problem here, because that's an unsustainable state. If you imagine a cup as like a clay cup, you can only make a cup so big. And then it's like, and then at that point, it's like a dead end. Like, oh my God, like I broke my cup. Like I can't receive anything else after this. Like I know too much now. And so here's the next, this is where the secret knowledge comes in. And this is generally like when the Kabbalists would see people growing up and they get to a certain age and they've come to that point in their life, like usually in their 30s, and they're like having this midlife crisis, like, man, I led myself here, or I was brought here and I got everything I thought I wanted. Now I don't know what to do next, or I don't know how to get on from here. This is when the Kabbalists would like target them or single them out and be like, all right, well, now you're ready to receive the secret knowledge. And that's when they would start to train you and teach you about all this stuff. But the fifth need is not an actual, see, the thing about all the other needs is that they're all receiving. That cup, receiving water. You need this, you need this, you need this. Our biology, it's all the things that we use to live with our perception are receivers. Our eyes receive light, our ears receive sounds, our feelings receive sensation. Everything. We receive air, we need to constantly be beating our heart in order to stay alive. But all of these needs are about receiving. Once you get to that knowledge thing and you can't receive anymore, you have to create a new need that was not there in the first place. You have to create a need. But what kind of need can I create? I can't create anything. By definition, I'm a receiver. Mm-hmm. And this is where the thing is like we're living in a simulation. Like they say, there's nothing new under the sun or whatever. Everything's already been created. Well, in a way, that's true. But this is where we develop that filter. Like, okay, I need to create a new need that was not there before. And the guidance is to not create a need for you. All of your needs have been filled. You got to create a need that's for something else beyond you, for someone else, or generally for others. Just like that's where the concept of serving others comes from. Because first you go through this path learning how to serve yourself, and that you serve yourself fully. Now you need to create a new need that is literally not for you, it's for other people. And this is like they call it in the Kabbalah, they call it finding the tiny spot in your heart. The heart being the symbol for the mass of all your needs and mass of all your feelings. You need to create a new feeling. Basic way of looking at this, it's you need to make an intention. And from that intention, you start to operate on a whole new level. And this is where you graduate in Kabbalah, you graduate to the next level where you're beyond all the needs at that point. Because at that point, all of your needs are subconsciously being drawn to you. You don't have to think about it. At that point, you can be creative, which is what the Creator's all about. In the dichotomy of the creator and the creature, or the thing that the creator creates. You can't really be the creator, but they are linked. So by creating an intention that in the language of the Kabbalah is to become more similar in form to the creator. It's just an action of intention that's for something beyond yourself. And this is like the hardest thing for people to do. A lot of people don't get to that point because once they get to the point of knowledge being power, they're like, oh, well, I like being in charge. I like being me. Mm-hmm. But then after that, it's like if you create a need that's not for you, you realize that this is not all about you. It's never really been all about you. You start doing things for other people. And that's where the real happiness comes from. That's where the evolution comes from. That's when the real magic starts to happen. When you start to, and really the magic is like when you help somebody that needs help and you do it because you want to help them, what happens? You feel good. Yeah. You feel good because you helped somebody else. You didn't need to help them, but you did. That is the simple joy of life, is when you help other people and you get a good feeling back. But when you get that knowledge of the progression of that whole point, you start to see the mechanics behind why you feel good when you do that. Why should I feel good if I help them? I'm not them, but you are them. And you start to do that, and then it's like the synchronicities start to bring it together. So it's like all of these halls of mirrors. That's when once you create that intention, it's like the synchronicity moment, where all of a sudden you realize where you are in the hall of mirrors, and you're all synced up. And then what happens is that all the movements seemingly all moving in different places all start to move together little bit by little bit. And then the more that you keep doing actions, the more that you do for other people, the more you're doing for yourself. Does this make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that like in terms of graduation and the trunk of the tree, getting to it's about the fountain, the seed that he plants at the end of the movie to then symbolically grow the tree that gets him to where he had to go in the beginning of the movie. So it's all about learning how to plant that seed again, or find out where the seed was planted for your own tree. And then it's like, that's where the real freedom comes in. The real freedom is like, oh, well, where am I going to plant this tree? What kind of tree am I going to plant? Then you become the creator, because then you're planting a thing, you're nurturing the thing, you're taking care of the tree to grow, which is then going to provide life over time for much more than just yourself or anything. So.
Yeah, that's a hell of a thing to think about. And thank you for that. You articulated that very well. And I got a great visual while you were telling that story, I guess. Fuck. That's a lot to think about, Alex. Thank you for that, but also not thank you for that, because now I'm going to be preoccupied with that. But I definitely followed your progression really well, because you could see when you have those glimpses, those synchronistic moments, where those come from, and you could feel. I've kind of had that visual before too, where just thinking everyone's connected on the same web, so like there are moments where when you do something, somebody else does something, and it kind of feels like, even though you're not physically connected, there was like something that happened there where you were all on the same exact frequency for a second or whatever it was. But to like have an idea or have an intention to literally help other people, or have that be a need. I remember hearing that one other time, like make it a need to do something, not a want or a desire or something like that, because those are very different. But to make something for somebody else, or for something besides yourself, a need, is like a very abstract idea for me, for sure, and I'm sure for a lot of people. Because why would, unless you're a mother, a single mother, and you have a need, that's when you have to jump into it like that. It's like you have 3 kids that you need to support, and that's your whole life. Like, but when it comes to people like us who aren't in a situation like that, and aren't forced to have a need for someone else, that's just a wild thing to even contemplate, that making a choice to create a need for yourself for something besides yourself. It's just like, it makes a lot of sense that would be the next 2 or 3 steps up from where I am and from where other people are. But yeah, wow.
I think that's I would go on a limb here. Thomas Jefferson. I'm gonna be John Adams here. You're gonna be Thomas Jefferson. We've always been such characters, but in such a way, it's like we are all equal in that place. Like, we're all at the exact same place, and like at times we simulate in our own little time vectors or whatever, that like it seems like we're at different places at different times, but we're all ultimately on this hero's journey, and we're always coming to that same point. And I think even too, it's like, what, like you could say, well, what kind of thing, you can think of practical things that you could do as a need for other people. But I think as a mass understanding, it's like you can be you for other people. The best thing you could, I think, and I could totally, obviously could be wrong with this, but it's like, I think the best generalization of having a need for other people is to be you, unfiltered version, or your version of you. Be the best you, like we were saying before, like do you. And it's just like the more present and true you are to yourself, it's going to help other people. Because you'll see, it's like you're going to be, at that point, you're comfortable in your own skin. And and you realize it's not even really about what you do for other people. It's, I mean, yes, the more physical actions and the rituals of doing things for other people will help get you in a program of knowing what that means. But it's like, by just being and being comfortable and just being like assured, it's like, I don't have to do something it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. And it's like, and you'll resonate with people like that. People who are very confident, and there's like Thomas Jefferson. It's like, he fucking was confident and charismatic and had the knowledge of all this stuff, and people wanted to be around him. And he was helping other people just by being himself. Mm-hmm. I think that is like that next level. And then over time, the rituals of like what you can do to get you to that point.
Right.
I mean, I'm totally not there yet. And it's like, I mean, even like when I was at Sundance, that's a lot of the understanding there, being at the Tree of Life and doing this whole ceremony and taking a sacrifice, fasting, not eating or drinking water for several days, and just praying constantly, so that it's like holding space so other people could come in and heal. And when you're there, it is so obvious. It's a lot easier, especially because you're in a community of people out in the woods away from everything, to like, you know, have like, because at times there'll be that glimpse, but then like when you're in that community, like for days after, you're just feeling great because you're living that way of life. But then sure enough, you come home, the programs come back in. We're still in the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, as soon as I came home, there was like a huge turmoil of just like going right back into the program and getting triggered on all those levels. And, you know, it's again, back to what you were saying before, it's like when like that person was said some awful shit about Machiavelli and you just didn't respond to it. It's like, that's a good first stop. It's like, that's when I came back, I was like, some shit went down. I was just like, I'm just not going to react to this, you know? And it's like, there's a lot of mindful activities involved with doing that. And it's a constant process. It's a struggle, but it's like also, it's a process that you got to be willing to be in. And we're always going to be tempted to play that game. We're always going to come, like, no matter what, someone's like, would you like to play a game of solitaire? And then fucking you're the Manchurian Candidate all of a sudden.
Right.
So it's like, we gotta be a little bit, I think maybe it's being gentle and just recognizing that that's the part of the thing, and that it's okay. It's okay if we end up if we play the game. Mm-hmm. Or if we play the game or realize we're playing the game. We don't want to play the game. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. And I think that's for me, a big part of the graduation is, and like this, we could go on a limb here using the tree metaphor again and say that our entire lives are this graduation. The whole, from being born into this world to the moment that we go through the door at the end, that this whole thing is the graduation. It's like the graduate program of education program of this whole thing. And we should just like be okay with that. And it's like, and the more that we in work with community, like every time we have these conversations, I feel great. It's like really helpful to me hearing your input and just be, not even that, everything you say is really awesome and very insightful. I really love everything you're saying. And
well, right back at you, dude. Right back at you every time. Just so you know, you already know, but
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, thank you. And and I think the main point is that it's like, regardless of all the information and the words that we're saying, just your presence has always been a really important presence to me. And we gotta, that's something that we can share with the world. I think that's part of the graduation. Like, you know, it's like, talk about, oh man, I really want to graduate. It's like, start looking at it, it's like, no, I'm already graduated. I'm in the graduate program. I got my doctorate. I'm just, you know, the pressure comes off a little bit.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. Cause there is pressure, obviously, especially when you're building up something to aspire to, and, you know the work that has to be done with it. But yeah, you're right. It's comforting to know it is a good way to change my perspective on it, or anyone to change their perspective on it, and say that you're already in the process. It's not something that's in front of you. It's something that you're inside of already, and you're already doing it. You've already taken some steps, so you're on your way. It's not like you're still walking up to the podium. It's like you're already on the podium, going through the whole process, just waiting for, what's his name? What was the dean? Who's the dean? Who was our dean? Kessler?
Is it Kessler or Ginsburg?
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, well, I don't even remember.
But just waiting for them. Yeah. Otherwise it's too much pressure, and then that's like debilitating and makes me not want to do anything, thinking of all the work, even though I don't have that much work to do. But I mean, when you were saying like that, part of like, but there are, like everything else, is there's microcosms, there's little pieces within the little pieces within the little pieces. So within the graduations, there are graduations, right? Like there are steps, there are quizzes in there, and there's rungs of the ladder or limbs of the tree. If you're trying to climb up a tree, you're climbing it, but there's still a couple of branches ahead of you. Which is, I think, is a good thing too, is like if you give yourself motivation to go to the next step. So ultimately I'm trying what you had just said, like anytime we have these conversations, I feel uplifted. And anytime we talk, I always feel great about it. And that's another reason why I want to like have us be in proximity again, where we can actually hang out on a consistent basis and put some work in, because we still obviously have a lot of things to accomplish together. And I think we help each other be ourselves more, which is also, I want to go back to what you said, which is a good stepping stone in finding a need for yourself, or finding a need for yourself for others is being yourself, because that emanates and that motivates people. Like anytime you come across someone who's like their own person, even if the interaction is very minimal, it leaves an effect on you. Like, oh, that was a different thing than normal. You know, that wasn't like a generic interaction. That wasn't like a robot human being like most of us are. Like that person was kind of doing their own thing, and they were thinking about what they were doing, instead of being like, you said this, I said that, oh my god, do boo boo boo, like all those conversations that I have every day. Everyone has every day, you know, like literally no one's saying anything. But yeah, the graduation, I think at least I'm just happy that I'm seeing it that way, even though I might be seeing it as a too much of an overwhelming thing at this point. But I want to feel like I need to earn something in order to get to the next step. I know that's what this whole life is. And I've heard of, we heard David Wilcock or people talk about like birth being like literally a master's class, because it's so difficult. Like people have called it a preschool because we're so primitive or whatever, but compared to the other billion societies out there who are light years ahead of us in developments and enlightenment and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's good to have like the idea of a graduation, and maybe I'm making it way too much on my shoulders, but I think it'll be worth it when I get through it, because I feel like the tools that I'll have when I get through the graduation, just like when we all reach the end of our lives here at Earth, like they'll be completely invaluable. And it's kind of like, to be morbid, it's kind of like because I want to move out of Milwaukee eventually and move back to live with you somewhere, or live around you somewhere, maybe in LA, maybe somewhere else. And I could just do that. Like I could do the same thing I did before. I could move home for a couple of months and save up, quit my job, and then move out, live on your couch, live on Mayor's couch, and save up and find a job and squeeze by, and then we could find another place and like do the whole thing over again. Like I could do that right now, but I'd be missing so many things that I need to succeed out there. And if I did that again, most likely I would end up in the same place that I was when we were living downtown. Like the same situation, big ideas, almost there, didn't quite make it, restart. And then before you know it, we're all 40 or we're all 50. And so like,
I want to do it again.
Yeah, right. Just like, so I need this. I think it's just a good idea that people should have, like having goals, I guess, but just like saying I need to accomplish this. And I've chosen to call it a graduation. We have, before I'm letting myself leave. Like there are certain things that I need to, a little feedback there. And that's just like my self goals. But I don't know. I think I'm getting closer there. And then the whole 33 thing is another opportunity, I think, to use the motivation to get the things done. And they're very doable. It's just the games keep coming in and out. And like you said, it's okay to play them sometimes, but I just feel like I exist only in the matrix here. Like Milwaukee's a great place, but it is like everything heavy in the matrix. Like all the indulging, all the alcohol, all the, I don't know. It's a tough matrix to break out of. It's like the heaviest one that I've lived in, and it's like weighing me down pretty heavily at this point. But I feel like I can see the end of the tunnel, or at least the diploma that'll be handed to me. But proving tougher and tougher. But I appreciate having these conversations with you. I feel like the more of these that we have, the more probable I am at succeeding, or the quicker I am at succeeding.
I totally believe in you, and I know that, I know that you're on the right path in that sense, and you're aware of all these things, and it's like to talk about the stories, because all we have to own in this world are our stories, and the language we've been using about the trees, and even just graduation specifically. Like, what is, according to a regular graduation, what is the thing that we had to do in college to graduate? What was the final thing? It was our thesis project.
Right.
We had to have a thesis project, and everybody had their own thesis project, and it's something that you kind of have to work on for a long period of time. And in the process of college, you go to class and work on your thing. You come home, we go to the house, and we go walk around the neighborhood hugging trees, or we go to the beach, or we do this, or we do that. We hang out. We were in the Matrix. We were playing games. But in the meanwhile, we were there for a reason, which was to graduate. So we had to make efforts to finish our thesis. And the thing was, it's like, in terms of a thesis, it's like, it's a central idea. It's a project that you work on. It's an intention. And the thing I think that made it work was the fact that we were invested in the college. We were paying for it. We had a timeline. You know, there was like, we need to graduate by this date. So there was like, it wasn't just like an intention or a goal. It was more than that. It was like, I have a need to, like, I need to finish this. And we wanted to do it. It was a creative thing. You wrote your script. I made my movie. We helped each other do it. And that's, I think maybe it's like, that's like, as a thing to think about with all this stuff. It's like, think about that. Focus on like, okay, well, really get clear on what it is that your thesis is, and like, what is it that you want to accomplish in order to feel like you've made that thing. Because I totally, what you just said about like, I could totally just come out there, we just do it all. And it's like, dude, that's like, obviously that's not the right way to do it. Like, it's like, that's just doing the same thing, expecting different results. That's the cause and react thing. Oh, I want to go out there. This will help me. I'll go out there and it'll work. I'll just change my environment and that'll fix it. And it's like, no, that's not going to fucking fix anything. So this is like, I totally agree with you. And this makes so much sense. It's like, and I support you in that. And I would just suggest that you get very clear on your thesis idea. Like, what is it specifically that you need to do in order to do this? And I know we've talked about this too at length in terms of like your music and just your health and these things. And it's like, all right, well, write it down as if it's a, like, you know, putting it like on your note board, keep it simple too. In the book of Chris, you know, keep it simple. That's the only words in those books. And that large book, massive book, the only thing written down there is keep it simple. Empty pages after that. So this is like, what you should do is create a page and call it your thesis, or call it whatever you want, but make it your this is my thesis idea. These are my goals. This is what I need to do. You don't have to get into all the details of all the little fractal microcosms of the things within the things that you need to do, but just like write down the bullet points, write down the basic things, and then work towards them as if you are literally in that college. Because it's like the other end of that graduation scenario is like the classic Van Wilder person who's in college for many, many years, well beyond the point that they're supposed to graduate. And it's like, man, I should have graduated years ago. I'm still living in this fucking frat house after all these years. And it's like, what the hell? Where's all the time gone? You don't want to be that either, as opposed to just like going off and doing it right away. There needs to be that little middle ground thing. And I think it's like, we're making shit up, we're to take it seriously and keeping it simple all the while. So, you know, and you can do it, and you know you can do it. It's just, if you have that written down, I think it'll help a lot.
I totally agree. Thank you for those motivational words. It's definitely very, very helpful, because I have it all in mind. I know what I need to do, but I guess keeping it in the etherical realm is like safer for me, because then it's not like writing it on the wall, you know, where we had no choice but to confront it, or whereas I'm kind of keeping it at a distance right now. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's still abstract.
Don't write it on the wall.
Well, I'm not going to write it on the wall. We've done that before. We've done that before too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to learn from what we've done, and not saying that we did anything wrong, but we already did it. We don't need to do it again.
Right. We know better than to write things on the walls. It's a little bit different, right? Thomas Jefferson did not write the Declaration of Independence on some wall somewhere. It was on a much more temporary piece of paper.
It was on hemp, right?
It was on hemp. He wrote it on hemp. That's a fact. And it's almost like thinking about it's like a mandala, dude, like an actual Tibetan mandala, but instead of using paper, which is obviously much more temporary than some stone tablet, like, the 10 Commandments or something like that. Don't do this, don't do that. They wrote it on a piece of paper, which literally will be dust in the wind one day. And that's what the Tibetan mandalas are, is they do this great symbolic intention with a beautiful design. Takes them days to do it. They pray the whole time, they're focused, and then once they're done, they have a little ceremony, and they literally just like wipe it all up and just like gone, and it's because it's temporary. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to like writing on some stone walls, like, this is my intention, because the intention will come and go. This will be a service for now. It'll be temporary. It'll stay with you. You could take it, you could frame it, and it can move it around, because it's going to be a lot harder to move around some wall somewhere.
True. Very true.
So, because again, the ultimate intention beyond that is that you want to be able to go beyond these walls.
Perfect.
And all these things already, but it's just so fun having these conversations, because it's crazy how like interconnected everything is.
And I appreciate, and sometimes we need reminding of things that we've known for a long time, and that's, I think, is what's happening right now. So I appreciate your fresh reminders of things that I already knew, that I knew, but that I forgot that I knew, and just reminding me of what we do for each other, and that is also part of my graduation, is being able to collaborate with you again consistently. I think that is the ultimate goal, because, and especially just thinking about the whole crew, like thinking about the possibility. I know everyone's in their different places. I know Jeremy's been traveling with his girlfriend, and I know Corey's expecting, and like all these things happening, but just thinking about the idea, because if we all lived in the same city, even if we're all doing our own things, there's still that potential for, I still feel like the four of us there's something magical in that, like 100%. And then throwing Mayor in the mix and anybody else, like there's just a great potential for that. And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of groups of friends in LA that think that same shit, or out in New York or wherever they are. But it's like, I just know, we know that there's something there if we can put it all together. And I think that is part of the motivation. And then that's where the need comes from, I think, for others, is if we get together, at least you and I, the things that we can create, or at least the way that we can help ourselves be more of ourselves. And then the creation, when we become the creators, or as close to it as we can, then that is just better for everyone. And if that becomes our need, then I think it's kind of infinite where that can go. And that is the ultimate motivation. And I think that's partially what I was forgetting when I'm thinking about what I want to graduate. It's like, I want to graduate because I want to get out of here. Like, even though Pooh said, I just need to know where I'm going from, I don't need to know where I'm going to. I still need to know why I'm going from this place. Not just to leave, but to leave to go somewhere else. And I need to remember that to go somewhere else is to go be better somewhere else and go to the next level for me and for other people. Not just to escape, but to go to create and go be better.
Yep.
With everything. So thank you for that reminder, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an honor, dude. And with that, like, I think we should probably close this up. But I wanted to add like one little thing you were saying, like, because I couldn't agree more that, like, especially like you, myself, Jeremy, Corey. I mean, even like you, myself, and Jeremy specific. Like, we always knew that there was like we need to recollaborate. And when I saw Jeremy the other day, after not seeing him since Christmas, like, like no time has passed. We're fucking hanging out. we're at medieval times, obviously, like, which was really weird and symbolic. And I hadn't smoked. I don't really smoke as much anymore. And I took a couple hits of a vape pen before the final battle in this knight thing. I'm sitting next to Jeremy, and we're looking. The bad guy was literally a knight that had the black and white stripes with a big red cross on it. And our team was the blue knight with the fleur-de-lis symbol, like the 3 thing. And our knight won, kicked that other knight's ass. And Jeremy was telling me, he was like, dude, I'll let him explain it more because I didn't even hear too much about it. But he explained to me of what he's doing right now and how he's on some sort of major developments of really powerful, positive things for his own personal development and things that he's doing collaboratively with other people. And he's like, dude, we're almost at a point right now where I want to get the band back together. I want you, me, John, Corey. I want us to like all work together. We need to get back. He was very confident in exactly what you were just saying. Like, so that's a really cool synchronicity that like it's true. Yes, there are lots of people that have those intentions, but not everybody's a wizard, or everybody's a wizard, but let's not worry. Let's, every wizard, let the wizards be.
No, obviously I know what you're saying. It's okay to think we're not better than anybody else, but we know that we've had those experiences where we know what we have, and we know there's potential for lots of different things there, and we're doing ourselves a disservice and also everybody else a disservice by not giving them what we are capable of, and not us all being ourselves, and also kicking a soccer ball around in a circle on mushrooms and raising the vibration of the earth. Like, we need to do that again, not in that form, but we need to do it again on a different level. And I think having that capability is like, being a great opera singer and then not singing. It's like you have that, but we're not making it happen. And it's for a lot of different reasons, but I understand that he's gotten that feeling to get the band back together, because that's literally what I've been feeling recently. But starting with you and I reconnecting, we're the two who are just like having a conversation over a couple beers years later, and we're like, what are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing? Oh, have you talked to Paul or Ringo? Or it's just like, oh, well, I don't, we'll see what they're doing. I'm kind of getting the itch back. I've been writing some tunes, I don't know. Does it sound good? Oh, that's pretty, yeah, okay. Well, and I think that's just kind of, it's a cycle has gone through, and now we're reeling back around, because like last year, I didn't really feel like, or 2 years ago, maybe, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to move back out west, really. I like didn't really have a motivation to, or not, that whatever that was. But then recently, the last year, it's been like, no, we still have that. There is still something out there. There is still, because that's where all the 3 of you are. And it's like, that's where I'm drawn to it. And I just let me know that we still have a lot of work to do, but a lot of great things to do. And we still have so much potential in them. I'm just excited at that. And this has been rejuvenating. This conversation has been very, very, very motivational in a lot of different ways for myself. So it's given me a lot of hope. Not that I think it wasn't going to happen, but now I know that it will happen, and it will happen.
We need to remember. It's literally the mandala thing on the door in the house. Remember the fabric. How can I forg?
And I almost forgot, but I only forg. I didn't forget. I just forged.
Just forg.
Now I remember.
Yeah. And it's like we're following the spoons to that fork in the road. And when we got there, we went everywhere.
Amazing, dude. This has been great, dude. We obviously need to do it more often, but thank you for figuring all that stuff out that you needed to figure out with the program, and then making this happen. I love you, dude. Thank you so much for always being an inspiration, and just giving me the energy that I always need. I always appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an honor, and I return the same exact feelings, John. You're the man. I look up to you, but I also I look up to you in the sense that we are equals, and you inspire me in that way as well. And we'll allow these things to happen as they come up. I totally agree. We should make an effort to do these more often. But even like the other day, I tried to do like I have my camera and I got an idea. I'm like, oh, I got an idea. I'm gonna make a podcast of it. I set up my camera, my lights, and I like turn the thing on, hit the thing, and I was like, started like, oh no, fuck, oh, start over. Oh no, fuck, sorry. And like I did this for like maybe 10 minutes, and I was just like, fuck this, I can't do this. So it's like, again, it's like it's not the instant like let's do it, it'll happen. It's like it has to happen in its right way. And I feel like all the things that we talked about here were just exactly the way that, like, a lot of things that I even wanted to say were just naturally expressed in our conversation, and we really do collaborate in a good way. So more honor to that. And yeah, I'll put this up. We didn't do an official introduction, but who gives a fuck?
That's fine. Praise Lucifer.
Praise Lucifer. All right, brother, man.
Love you, dude. Good talking to you. We'll talk again soon.
All right, talk again soon, man. You have a good night.
You too. Peace up.
Peace out.
Peace out.